Good evening, everyone. The time is 7:15 p.m. from a sweltering Johannesburg. Lovely to have everyone joining us this evening. We are broadcasting today on Zoom, on YouTube, and on Facebook. And a big welcome to everyone around the world. And back on control this evening is Danny Kadar. Is that your wife eating in the background?
I can neither confirm or deny it. She would murder me. I had to quickly move the camera out of position.
Hello, Danny. Nice to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's great to be back, Howard. It's great to be back. It is a very hot day today. Sure, we need some hectic Joburg storm and rain, and yeah, it's been sweltering.
Look, but miraculously, I think I've had electricity all day today, and I think it's the first time probably since November.
Yeah, same. But you know, with that comes that anxiety of is the Eskom mafia building up for the next campaign, or are we making progress?
Do you think that maybe under his desk, Andre de Ruyter had an on-off switch?
Sadly, I don't think it's Andre de Ruyter. I think it's someone further higher up, based on that Daily Maverick article, which I got chills from. I think that kept me up a bit at night. But
can you explain to me, as quickly as load shedding begins, it suddenly disappears again? It just seems, especially with the march due on Monday about load shedding, and suddenly load shedding has disappeared. How's that even possible?
Howard, I think this is why South Africans, myself including, are getting so frustrated, because who's actually in control? Is there is there political interference? I mean, we do understand we've got an infrastructure problem, but how much of it is weighted towards the infrastructure challenges? How much of it is weighted towards this political involvement, intervention? And I think it's the latter that's really making people feel very anxious.
You mistakenly believe that someone's actually in control.
Well, I do think so, and I think that's what keeps me up at night. The question is, who's in control?
Benjy, welcome. When last were you on a webinar? It feels like months and months.
I'm not sure, actually. It does feel like a long time, but I know that I've been chatting to you the whole day, so it doesn't feel like I missed you. And I just saw Danny Kadar, so it's,
I did a bit of a Houdini. I was in two places at the same time, at my computer and at Shore Davening Mincha Marav. Howard, don't ask me how I managed to do that.
Can't you daven Mincha and Marav remotely? Benjy, if I leave a laptop and I'm on Zoom, can I still be counted as a minion in my local shul?
You ask your local Orthodox rabbi that.
Benjy, you are my halachic authority, you know.
Well, that's very scary. Anyway, but I think the answer is no, unfortunately. But it's been a remarkable thing to watch you kind of keep this webinar alive. And I know that we all thought that this webinar kind of time had passed with COVID, but just to the pure volume and the intensity and the brilliance of the content, you've shown that that's the content that matters, because I think the numbers have been bigger than ever. Eh?
Bigger than ever. I mean, the one we did, 2 months ago on Jacques, the story of Lithuanian complicity in the Holocaust and how perpetrators of the Holocaust were in fact Lithuanian heroes, was watched by 106,800 people in a single week, the week we were allowed to keep the documentary on, which is simply amazing. And when you look at the figures from Greg Blank and Rael Levitt from last week's one on bouncing back from scandal, and we're about 15,000 people having watched that one, or Gary Player, similar numbers. So I think people are just starved for decent, good content. And if it's a choice between us and watching Carte Blanche, I'm happy to say that a lot of people choose us rather than that terrible music on a Sunday evening.
Yeah, I think it's remarkable. Well done, Howie.
So, Benjy, we were just talking as you joined us. Do you think Andre de Ruyter had an on-off switch under his desk? Because suddenly, just as we head into marches potentially tomorrow about load shedding, suddenly the lights stay on for a whole weekend. Today's been my first day in, I think, 5 months that I had electricity all day.
You know, my late father used to say that it's probably better to keep quiet and be thought a fool than open your mouth and prove beyond reasonable doubt. So I think on this one, I'm gonna keep quiet. But I did send to you on Friday that I don't know if I get more nervous or less nervous when the load shedding schedules come down, because our big challenge is this big national blackout. But I think, I mean, all the data feels like it's, you know, that is a remote risk. But what is remarkable, and it's so inspiring, is you just walk around. I know we were walking home on Friday night after dinner, and you just see how many solutions people are providing in a cross section of community. We walked through Orange Grove. Look, there's still a lot of work to do, and I think that that's the enormous challenge here, is how to get, you know, more people kind of with electricity supply. So whatever it is, I'm not going to complain, but I'm not going to answer whether I thought Andre de Ruyter had the switch under his desk or not.
I'm pulling the trigger this week on getting solar for my home, but do you think maybe I shouldn't do it? Do you think maybe it's over? Am I being unrealistically optimistic, as is my nature?
I think the problem will be solved. You know, I'm a deep optimist. I do, and I'm happy to discuss why another stage, but then people better positioned. But I do think it's going to be enormously expensive. So I think that the solar will make sense for other reasons. It might not make sense because emotionally you're keeping the lights on, but I think that electricity supply, I know the 16 or whatever 18% increase has been approved. That's coming in 1 June, and I think electricity is going to be expensive. So I think it will make sense. You know, there are lots of people.
Benjy had an enormous diesel generator.
Yeah.
Noisy, polluting. Have we swapped that out for solar yet?
So yeah, so firstly, I had a couple of kids who were still online, and second, my wife still works from home. They're back in the office, but it's a hybrid model. So the leeway to be offline is much less. And yeah, we have swapped for a solar option, and the solar option, I must say, I didn't actually. I mean, I believe I love the planet, but I didn't really think that I would be so connected to how much better it feels to be away from that diesel guzzling, noisy, polluting option. And it's quite amazing. And I mean, people know I'm like a deep believer in Hashem. You actually see how powerful the sun is. At like 7:30 in the morning, you just see you see how amazing. Like it starts working, and it's so powerful. And I mean, I heard a stat, I can't remember exactly what it was, but like a tiny proportion of the sun could keep the entire planet with electricity. And so you see the power of what God has given us, you know. So yeah, I do.
So Rana Wolf says solar is the best thing we did. They did it 2 years ago, so they were way ahead of the curve here. Danny Kadar, did you pull the trigger? Have you got solar on your house?
We actually started going for quotes. So we're looking to move, but yeah, we're seriously considering it. We've taken a small step. We've gone gas instead of keeping our geyser on electricity. I think also enough for guys who want to lower the burden on the grid, also care a bit about the planet. Gas is a good step forward. But yeah, we are looking at solar. It's expensive, but I think it's a good investment, personally.
So hi to Linda in San Diego, who's just joined us, but especially a big welcome to Gordon Hill-Lewis, who I presume joins us from Cape Town.
Very good evening. Nice to join you indeed. Yes, I am joining you from Cape Town. I hope you can hear me clearly.
We can hear you clearly. We can't see the top of your head. So if you could adjust your camera, you know, those of you who still have hair need to show it off. The rest of us can cut it off about over here. And the man with the best hair in all of the country joins us, and that's Chris Pappas, who joins us from uMngeni as well. So Chris, a big welcome to you. We're going live. This is our pre-chat. We've been chatting for the last 15 minutes or so, but we're going live officially in 2 minutes. We just welcome everyone who joins us around the world, and we're broadcasting tonight on Zoom, on YouTube, and on Facebook as well. So Chris, that little moustache now makes you look a little older than what, 31?
I was wondering if you're referring to my moustache when you're talking about the best hair in the country, but obviously it was the one on top of my head.
But that's a new addition, isn't it?
Yeah, life changes, so we'll see how it works. Geordin was a bit jealous because he still can't grow facial hair, but we'll see how that ends up.
So do the DA mayors all get together and compare notes on a regular basis?
We do actually. We have a regular leadership forum or mayoral forum where all of the DA mayors from around the country get together in a in a conference room somewhere and chat about various best practices, various common challenges that one another are facing. That does happen from time to time. So Geordin, being in Johannesburg, I don't think anyone here could actually name the name of our mayor. And that's actually probably a very good thing. But spending a lot of time in Cape Town, whoever you see, everyone seems to know you. Oh, well, that's good to hear. But yes, not only know you, they even have nice things to say about you. And you must be the only politician in the country that people actually have nice things to say about. Chris, I haven't been to uMngeni recently, so I can't comment, but I can tell you in Cape Town, they actually like their mayor. How's it possible that there's a popular politician?
He's doing a good job. He's working hard. When you do what you say you're going to do, and you keep people up to date, and you keep them, you take them along with you, and you're honest with them, then yeah, it's easy. And Geordin does that every day. And it seems to have a lot of dinners with a lot of people. I have good restaurants there in Cape Town. What are you saying about the Midlands? Is there nowhere decent to eat? Don't you have a top 10 restaurant somewhere in that region? Yes, we do. We've got Michelin star chefs here as well. Okay, our wine is a lot better. So that's also no. Now you're starting a fight now. Violence.
I was at a conference where Chris spoke, and I can tell you it was near his area, and I can tell you the love was as generous for Chris from the residents of that area, especially, except for one group of people. It's the Marco House boys. They he's a big Hilton. Are you a Hilton graduate, Chris?
Benjy, did you share with them what your introduction message was to me on WhatsApp when you invited me here?
Look, it's up to you, Chris. I didn't want to embarrass you, right?
I believe it has something to do with a bottle of tequila. Is that correct?
There we go. Hi, Chris. You might not remember me, but we had a bottle of tequila.
Chris, I was keeping it clean. I was keeping hands on the table,
Chris, I don't know how to tell you this. Almost every message that either Benjy or I send, or sometimes even Danny, always says, "You may not remember this, but we met over a bottle of tequila."
No, but Chris was one of the stars of BNC4, and what was so remarkable was actually the sense of real commitment to the area that people we're going to hear more from him, but I know we hear a lot from Cape Town, but from the people of the Midlands were enormously kind of generous about their praise to him, and they weren't generous about everyone. I can tell you that.
And Chris, is Notties in your neck of the woods? I'm sorry that I don't know that, but is that part of that? So that's much better than your wine. Is there a fantastic beer at Notties Brewery?
Absolutely, and gin. We got gin, wine, and
so that's much better than your wine.
Oh, I don't know where we're getting feedback from, but to everyone watching us this evening, a huge welcome to everyone. The time has just gone 7 p.m. and welcome to the 147th webinar brought to you by the South African Jewish Report, now watched by approximately 2.7 million people who've watched our webinars that we started in the first week of COVID to try help people through the disease, and has now morphed into this. And tonight we're going to be speaking to two of the best mayors in South Africa and talking about how to build a world-class city. On controls this evening is Danny Kadar. Danny hasn't been with us for a few webinars. So Danny, welcome back. Lovely to have you. To everyone watching us around the globe, please let us know where you are. I see already that many of your constituents, both Geordin and Chris, are commenting that they're in Bantry Bay. So we've got some people in Pretoria. Khalil is talking about you being a legend. Chris, you'll see what we do is in fact very interactive. And tonight is going to be no exception. This is not a monologue. This is a conversation between everyone who's watching us this evening, whether you're watching us on Zoom, on YouTube, or on Facebook. Don't forget that part of the things that Danny will do will be, if you comment on Facebook or on YouTube, he'll bring those questions across so we can have a conversation between all of us this evening. But most importantly, we mentioned that this is the 147th webinar brought to you by the South African Jewish Report. And don't forget, the latest edition of the newspaper is out. It's a fascinating read. Please go and pick up your copy of the Jewish Report. And once again, we distribute all over South Africa in approximately 242 locations around the country. And you can find us in Spar and Checkers and Pick and Pay and Exclusive Books and CNA and your garage shop. Wherever you go, your butchery, your school, we're around. So pick up a hard copy of the South African Jewish Report. On the front cover this week is what happened at Tuks University in Pretoria this week. Really a very worthwhile read. And if I can trumpet my own trumpet, I don't know what you do to a trumpet, is go and read the article that I wrote called "It's Time to Grow a Pair." I think you'll find it fascinating and certainly be getting some traction all around the world. So don't forget to go pick up your hard copy. And if you can't get hold of the hard copy, don't forget that you can always find us online. If you go to www.sajr, which obviously stands for South African Jewish Report, so go to www.sajr.co.za, you can either download the full edition or alternatively look at each of the individual articles by themselves. And also don't forget that next Sunday we're back. We've got a fascinating webinar. All of our webinars are available on the Jewish Report website on sajr.co.za. But next week we've got a fascinating webinar. Rabbi Chazdan, age 60-something, gets it into his head, then he needs to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And he goes up Mount Kilimanjaro in the freezing cold. He's standing there putting on tefillin. He takes a Torah up. They have a Shabbat service on top of Mount Kilimanjaro. And he's going to be talking about lessons he learned from climbing Mount Kilimanjaro next week on our webinar. And we've tracked down another rabbi, a rabbi in the United Kingdom who's hiked the Great Wall of China, who's busy preparing to go to Everest Base Camp, and who's climbed Mount Meru. And he's going to be joining next week as well. So don't forget, same time, 7 p.m. next Sunday, we're online again with lessons from the mountain. And we've called it, if the mountain won't go to the rabbi, then the rabbi must go to the mountain. So that's next Sunday evening. But with that, a big welcome to all of our guests this evening. The two best mayors in South Africa, Chris Pappas and Geordin Lewis-Hill. Sorry, I got that inverted. And of course, we've got a very big week ahead of us, and we're going to be talking about that in a second. But maybe for those people who don't know either of you, I want to give you an opportunity to explain to people who you actually are. Where do you come from? How did you get involved in politics? And you seem to be half the age of everyone else on the political spectrum. So maybe, Geordin, let's start with you. Tell us how you landed up as mayor of Cape Town.
Evening, Howie. It's great to be with you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Just to start off, my name is a very funny spelling, but it is Geordin, just like the river, and like the shoes. And I am originally from Plettenberg Bay. Was born there, spent the first couple of years of my life there, and then moved to Cape Town very young. So I've been in Cape Town basically my whole life for about 30 years or so. And so I'm, well and truly Cape Townian now. And grew up with a single mom. She's a nurse. She is still a nurse, and got involved in politics very young, in high school already. And really the bug bit, I can't exactly say how, but probably a mixture of a very socially aware household, some great teachers. So many of us have had input from amazing teachers in the course of our lives. And then went to university at UCT, got even more involved there, started an organization called DASO, which is still going strong around the country. That's the DA student branch, student wing called DA Students Organization, and really just ran from there, and finished my degree, went and worked for Helen Zille at the time, and then got involved in elected politics, and eventually in 2021, that's right, decided that I would stand to be the mayor of Cape Town.
And Chris, yourself?
Good evening, everyone. I am born and bred in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands, in a small town called Mooi River, out in the Giant's Castle, from farming stock. I studied at the University of Pretoria, where I did my degree in town and regional planning, and that's where I got involved in university. Unlike Geordin, it wasn't with DASO, it was with the COPE student movement at the time, where I was elected onto the student council as the representative for academic affairs. Later, I was then appointed as the president of the temporary student council to redo the constitution of the University of Pretoria. And yeah, that's where politics really started for me. At the same time, I was involved in my local DA branch in Pretoria with my councillor there, putting up posters and doing all the other things that we do as activists. Moved from there and became a staff member in KwaZulu-Natal, my home province. I used to look after the areas of Chatsworth, Umlazi, all the way down the south coast. So very diverse communities. I learned a lot there about the incredible diversity we have in KZN, which was great. I became a councillor in the city of eThekwini, a ward councillor in the area of Musgrave, Overport and Sydenham. Large Jewish population in the Musgrave area, which was new for me. I got to engage with a lot of Jewish people, and then elected to the legislature, the provincial legislature here, where halfway through my term I ran for mayor.
So given that we have two of the youngest mayors on the thing, many of you won't in fact remember why we're celebrating on Tuesday, but Tuesday is obviously Human Rights Day. And it commemorates 62 years since the Sharpeville massacre, 69 people massacred by the apartheid government as they tried to return their passes to the Sharpeville police station, a day of great shame for South Africa. But we're now 28 years into democracy, and we sometimes question the progress that we've made over this period. So, Geordin, maybe we start with you. Monday is going to be a difficult day in South Africa. The EFF have called the stay away. And what does this mean in Cape Town? Are people panicking? And I think there's a lot of panic out there. Are people panicking for nothing? And what are you doing to mitigate Monday to make sure that all of our human rights are in fact protected in the days ahead?
Well, that's exactly the right point to make. It's not about limiting anyone's right to protest. Everyone is allowed to protest peacefully, but it is about protecting the rights of those who don't want to protest as well. Government has to protect both sets of rights. And I think that law-abiding citizens, law-abiding businesses should expect maximum protection from the state if they do not want to participate in Monday's shutdown. So we will have a massive deployment in Cape Town. I will be out and about from about 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, checking on our deployment. Our central joint operations center is in fact already up and running from tonight. And I don't expect anything major, to be honest. I think the EFF has very little support in Cape Town. They only got 3% of the vote here. And I think there will be probably at worst some isolated chances who try and do something. But we are not taking anything for granted. We'll be fully and well prepared. And of course, this comes on the back of the interdict that we got last week when we interdicted the EFF from any violence or intimidation, because businesses were sending us videos, and many, you said in your question, there is panic. Businesses were really starting to panic when people rocked up at their businesses and said, you know, we better find this business closed on Monday, or else there'll be big trouble, or else you'll be looted, and so on. That is completely unacceptable. And so we did go to court to stop that, and we will enforce that interdict very, very sternly tomorrow. Anyone in contravention or going against the interdict stands to be arrested.
We have seen some pictures, and I think they come out of Cape Town as well, of tires and police rounding up tires. Have you in fact experienced, is this genuine? Are tires being left around next to roads in order to create a menace tomorrow, or is that just a little bit of propaganda?
No, well, you can never be sure. I mean, there's the people dump tires all over the place. You know, the tires are one of the most commonly illegally dumped item. They dump them in rivers, they dump them in the ocean, they dump them everywhere because they are difficult to get rid of. So you don't know how many tires are just being dumped illegally and how many are actually being stockpiled. I honestly do think that there is something to this, given the number that we have collected. That I'm getting kind of hourly reports on where we are finding these piles of tires. I think that probably, Howard, some of them are dumped and some of them are put there for a more malicious reason. Nevertheless, we've gone and collected them all.
Chris, on your side, what are you expecting on Monday in the Midlands?
Well, we're far smaller than Cape Town. As Geordin says, I think the EFF actually doesn't have as much support as they think they have. And the support that they do have is largely in Gauteng, your Limpopos, Durban Metro, etc. So we're not expecting huge disruptions, but we are expecting them to try and make themselves look bigger than what they actually are. And you've been speaking about one of the mechanisms that they do. We have got confirmation that they have been doing that, putting tires in different places. In fact, I was at a meeting on Friday. It was an IDP forum, and the EFF councillors asked to leave early because they had to go and deploy tires, as they said. But we've come to learn that they survive on fear, division and violence, and that's who they are. Without any of that, they are an illegitimate organization with no real cause. So we're used to that. We here as a small town are expecting a little bit more than our neighbors. And that's particularly because I'm the only white mayor in KZN, and they've targeted me to say, we are coming to kill white monopoly, wada, 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 all their noise. So we have, increased our contact with SAPS, and they've also acknowledged that and deployed the necessary resources. But that's just as a precaution. It's not to cause any fear. We are used to this in KZN. A year ago, we had the July riots, or just over a year ago. So our communities are ready for these sorts of situations. And as Geordin says, those who have a right to protest must also respect those who don't want to protest and get to work and feed their families.
Before Benjy asks the question, because I know Chrissy has a specific question that he wants to pose to you, what advice are you giving to businesses in your area?
It's business as usual. And if you see anything suspicious, let us know. If you are intimidated, we've set up, like Geordin them have as well, a control center, an ops center, where through SAPS, SANDF, ourselves, and private security, we've got response mechanisms throughout the different regions of the municipality.
Chris, as I said, we met at the BNC conference and you spoke, and it was really so inspiring. And I think you made the point, or Alec Hogg made the point, that someone who speaks the language, the local language, has a far better insight into how similar we all are. And you spoke about the divisive nature of some of the kind of rhetoric that's out there. And I'd love you to share with the audience, like, some of your views about, once you actually do understand the grassroots, and once you actually can speak, and I know you're fluent. There are a couple of questions. How did you get fluent? So maybe if you answer that, but how you feel about, once you are able to engage properly, what sense you get from your community?
So I learned isiZulu growing up in the rural areas, and to read and write it at school. But I think the one thing about language, besides being able to empathize with people, you know, in using the words that people use as opposed to translation, is that language sometimes puts us in lagers, it puts us in familiar groups. So if you are an English speaker, you generally stick around with English speakers, Afrikaans, or, you know, whichever group that is. And if you're able to cross between different language groups, you then start to get into the networks of people, whether it's church groups or whatever it might be. And that's where the real value comes, is because you can start to I'm not going to use the word infiltrate, it sounds very military, but to get entrenched in people's cultures. So that's very helpful from my side, is that people don't feel fear or necessary that they can come to me and include me in things that I wouldn't usually be included in as a white South African. But again, that's the same for many people. There are many people who don't speak isiZulu who find a mechanism to do that. And that's the most important thing, is being able to engage with people who are not the same as you in a way that is not just it's not just window dressing, but there's actually to empathize with people.
You know, Frans Cronje from the Social Research Foundation has been speaking about a study that he did, that the vast majority of South Africans actually feel the same way about most of the issues. I would say 99% of the issues. Is that your experience? Maybe Geordin, and then Chris, maybe you can kind of speak through that, if that's your experience with your constituencies.
100%. I completely agree with that. I mean, one of the really interesting insights that I often get from politics in Cape Town is how, and I'm not exaggerating here, not a single voter in Cape Town or resident has ever raised with me the fact that I am a white male mayor in Cape Town. Not one. Of course, they might be thinking it, but no one has ever explicitly raised it. The only people who have ever raised it with me are political journos. And I think that's just such an interesting observation about how, you know, the overwhelming sentiment I get from residents of every background and community is we are desperate for a government that will just get things done, that will get the basics working. And that really everything else besides that is increasingly irrelevant. Not completely irrelevant in South Africa yet, but increasingly so. And certainly that's been my experience since the day I was elected, even before that, even on the campaign trail.
Yeah, I think the same from my side. And I think it's been proven over and over again as well. It's just that sometimes I think as you know, the South African media has an obsession with race because it attracts so much attention to it. But poll after poll has come out and proven that race is really not an issue that people put at the top of their agenda. That's not to say that the legacy of apartheid and colonialism and all these things are not important, that we shouldn't overcome them and put effort towards doing that. But what it says is that, you know, people want to know, are the lights going to stay on? People want to know that if my child plays in the park, is it going to be safe, whether it's a black child or a white child? Can I put food on my table? It doesn't matter what color my skin is, but I need to have a job. So those are the important things to South Africans, not whether or not your mayor is black or white, but whether or not your mayor can ensure your family is safe and put food on the table and make sure the potholes are fixed.
So, Geordin, maybe we can actually start, because a few years ago, Cape Town was in crisis. There was a major shortage of water. Didn't look like such a fantastic place to be. I was just in Cape Town. I'm one of the people who came down to watch the EPRI and the Investec Art Fair and had a remarkable week in your city, as I always do whenever I come. What did you do to get things right? Why is Cape Town now the example that every city in South Africa should be followed?
Look, I've been in office for 16 months, so there's no way that I can take credit for what Cape Town has got right. It's been many, many years of getting things right, building on top of each other. Chief amongst that is that Cape Town is financially extremely stable. When I look at what my poor colleagues have to put up with in other metro governments around the country, and DA mayors around the country, the key differentiating factor is that Cape Town has got next to zero debt, has got a very healthy payment culture, and has built that up over many, many years of good, sound government. people know that they get value for money. People know that their property prices are generally going to increase, making them wealthier over time. So that kind of stuff is extremely important. But I think the key insights that I did have in the campaign for the mayoralty was that you have to stop waiting around for national government to fix some of the things that are broken, because it's not going to happen. And I think the city, and I get this, I understand this, the city officials, the city leadership is very keen to stick to its knitting. And to say, you know, this is not our job, we'll wait for Eskom to fix power. This is not our job, we'll wait for the police to fix policing. And many such other examples. And I just said, look, you are so tied to the national picture, the national economy on these crucial things. And these are the things that are making people feel vulnerable, making people feel hopeless about South Africa. If you are going to not put up your hands and say there's nothing we can do about that, then you really are on a hiding to nothing. You can't differentiate Cape Town in the long term. If you really want to differentiate Cape Town in the long term, you have to start tackling those things. So we went flat out on day one and said we are going to start buying our own power. We're not interested in Section 34 determination, which is the technical word for this ridiculous idea that we have to ask permission to buy power in South Africa. We're going for it. We're going flat out. We're going flat out to build our own policing force and start taking more policing powers, like investigatory powers and detective powers and so on. And I think that was a really key insight that has given people a huge amount of confidence that Cape Town properly can differentiate itself from the trajectory of South Africa. And even as you get growing increasingly concerned about where South Africa is going, you can actually look to this place and say, well, they are tackling some of those. Not solved yet. It'll take us some time still to sort out load shedding, but we will do it. We will absolutely do it, because we are not interested in waiting around for Eskom or the police or the PRASA or Transnet to fix these problems for us. We'll do it ourselves.
Tell us practically, how do you do this? Where do you buy power from? It's not like there was a huge amount of power just waiting for someone to purchase, I presume. How does Cape Town, because when Johannesburg's on stage 6, Cape Town's on stage 2. And I presume you've set a deadline to actually get off the grid completely. How do you do it? What advice do you give to everyone if they come to you to say, like, explain to us the process?
So Cape Town is 2 stages lower than the rest of the country, not 4 stages yet, but we will get there. So we buying power on the open market. There's no problem buying power. There's more than enough capital around the world. There's more than enough great power entrepreneurs ready and willing to buy power. We had this ridiculous idea that, and it was protected in law, it was established in South African law, that only Eskom may buy power in South Africa. They have this legislated monopoly, which, by the way, they still actually do. But it has been, it means nothing. It's just on paper now. It's fallen apart. And one of the ways I'm very proud of this, that we helped make it fall apart, was by saying we are going to go out and buy power without any ministerial permission. And we're going to do it because we believe, a constitutional responsibility to look after our local economy, to look after our local residents, and provide an essential life-giving service like electricity. So if there was a whole lot of spare capacity out there, of course, we could have solved this already. You do have to build projects. You've got to connect them to the grid. They've got to be financed and so on. So it's not an overnight solution. But the fact is, we are in the market buying 700 megawatts of power right now. And that is enough to say goodbye to stage 5 load shedding in Cape Town over the next couple of years. And we will do it.
And will you be completely independent of Eskom at some point in time?
I think that Eskom will still supply power for a very long time to come, because it has so much installed capacity. It has 45,000 megawatts of installed capacity. The problem is only half of it works at any one time. So Cape Town at peak time uses 2,500 megawatt hours of power. So it's a very big power user. It'll take us a long time to build that kind of alternative capacity. But the idea, Howard, is absolutely, as you say, to decrease our reliance on Eskom and increase our self-reliance, our resilience against national failure. And at some point, there will be a crossover point where we actually don't need Eskom anymore. But that's still some way off.
You mentioned recently there was some press around that Cape Town's going to be able to purchase electricity from individuals. So there was a question here, just where are you in that? Kind of what's the road out of that?
We are ready to go. So there are two really important policy changes we made in solar in the last few months, which I'm really proud of, and I hope that people jump at the opportunity. The first is that we will pay for power. It's the only city in Africa that is actually paying residents and businesses. If you want to get an EFT from us at the end of the month, we will actually pay you for that power. You can also get a credit against the rest of your bill, and actually most people choose to just credit it against the rest of their bill. But if you do want to get paid, you can get paid. The second big change is that you can produce as much as you want and we'll buy it all. Previously, the city used to say you still have to be at what we called a net consumer. So you still had to use more than you sold. We've taken that away. That's changed, and you can now be a net producer. You can produce as much as you want and we will buy it all. And that is live. That's ready to go. We are making payments to businesses already. We have not yet started making payments to households, but we will be able to do that in the next couple of months. We started with businesses because actually most of our feed-in power comes from businesses. It stands to reason given the size of their roofs. So that's already happening. It's live.
Chris, when you took over, what did you find in the municipality? Were things functional? Was there equipment? What was there, and what did you do about it?
There wasn't much. There still isn't much, but there's a lot more than when we started 14 months ago. As Geordin said, he can't take credit for all the city's successes. It also took them, what's it now, 17 years, Geordin, 15 years of a change of government, a change of policies, and a change of priorities. So what we found is really a lack of direction from any sort of leadership position, whether it's the officials or from the politicians. The second thing was just the complete lack of internal control, the lack of policies, the lack of systems, outdated procedures, procedures that defended those who were looting and gave very little oversight to councillors, to public representatives. So, I mean, I can tell you how many tractors we didn't have and all of those sorts of things, but those really are just a byproduct of having a lack of direction, a lack of oversight, and a lack of skills and capacity to be able to deliver on a functional municipality.
I think we may have just lost Geordin there. I hope he comes back shortly. But while he does that, Chris, talk to us about corruption. Was there a lot of corruption when you took over?
So we all know corruption is what we see on TV and what we hear. But there's different forms of corruption if you start to break it down into its individual little components. So what we know as corruption on paper is very different to what you see. But overpricing, price gouging, manipulating tender documents, all of those things are not always corruption. You know, there's not always some benefit for one municipal official, but there are always cartels that exist in the municipalities, as we've heard Andre de Ruyter mentioned in Eskom. The same thing in municipalities. My security contract is one such thing where it's our biggest contract. It's 19 million rand, and you know, people do whatever they can to keep that contract. They'll do whatever they can to manipulate the system to support their outcome. So corruption comes in many different forms. It comes in many different. It manifests itself in many different ways. Deliberate misunderstanding of policies and procedures. Not renewing contracts and putting them on month-to-month basis. Our insurance company. So our insurance company doesn't update their policies. I won't say which company it is, but I pay the same insurance on a 35-year-old tractor as I do on a 6-month-old tractor. I pay insurance on vehicles that have been written off still, but have never been taken off of our insurer's book. So all of these things benefit someone. And when you trace back where these companies come from and how they got into the system, sometimes you find that they're linked to politicians. Most of the time you find that there's some sort of benefit for government officials. But yeah, it manifests itself in many, many different ways.
And has it been easy to kind of stamp that out, or is it an ongoing process?
It's not easy at all. you're talking about money here. You're talking about people's livelihoods. You're talking about their legacies, their families. You know, when the money starts running out and it's been coming in illegitimately, people will get your wives to call them. I've had people's wives calling me saying, why are you stopping, you know, the bread on the table? We've had, you know, messages, death threats, you know, municipal managers getting threatened and things like that. So it's not easy. But I think what makes it harder is that it's not in plain sight. You don't just see it. Corruption is not something you see. You have to go and find it. And that takes an incredible amount of capacity. You know, forensics, lawyers, labor, all these sorts of things, auditing, and you have to find this stuff, and it has to be conclusive, because in South Africa, the law protects criminals. And it has to be conclusive. Otherwise, you are wasting your time and your energy and your resources as a municipality.
It would be interesting to share with some of our viewers some of your stats, Chris. I know you've shared before on just like where you are in your budget, where you are with your debt when you took over 18 months ago. Because what I think is insightful on that is you took over something very difficult, and it's not a long period of time, and you've made enormous impact. Maybe you can share with us that kind of impact that you've made.
Sure. So the thing that makes a municipality be able to function as quickly and as efficiently as possible is finances. If your finances are in a shambles, then it's very hard to be able to fund service delivery programs or capacity building programs. So that is and will remain one of our main core focuses for a long time. And those are the things that you don't see as residents. You see the symptoms of poor financial management, and that is the potholes, etc. But simple things. So, you know, we just spent 2 million Rand on updating our internal systems for asset management, performance management, and supply chain, to take those things away from being paper-based and making them online. So that's 2 million Rand that I could have spent on something else, but I need that to help stop the corruption. I need that to make the process more efficient. Getting rid of debt. We had 12 million Rands worth of debt that was taken to pay operational expenses, mainly Eskom and salaries, at a time when the municipality was not functioning very well because of poor decisions. We've managed to reduce our debtors book. You know, our VAT vendors were charging us 20% commission when the standard is 14%. So we've managed to, you know, they now have to pay us back 2 or 3 million Rand because of that. So all these financial controls that you put in place that have long-term benefits. 95% of our contracts were expired. And when they become month to month, then people take advantage of you and add premiums onto those contracts. So to have to redo those while still navigating the supply chain, which is deliberately trying to obstruct you because there's some sort of benefit along the way. So yeah, those are the sorts of things that we are doing. When we took over, we weren't able to actually pay Eskom on the first month that we took over. We had to do some. It was basically, it's called irregular expenditure. Basically, we didn't tick the boxes to be able to move money from one place to another. It wasn't corruption, as everyone thinks, but it was being able to pay Eskom. We had a huge problem with our salaries bill. So we had to sort all these things out. We sit in a situation now where we are able to pay Eskom 1 month in advance. And that's a 12 or 13 million Rand bill in summer and double that in winter. We are able to now employ more people because we've stabilized the wage bill. So it's all these step-by-step processes that you get there. And it takes time. It really does take a lot of time. Always, when I go to Cape Town, I get a little bit upset because I say, you know, I want my town to look like this tomorrow. But Helen Zille always reminds us when we go on the retreats that we spoke about earlier, the mayoral conferences. She said, you won't see change day by day, but you'll see it over time. And I think DA governments that have been there for a long time, like City of Cape Town, Midvaal and others, you see that change over time to a point where you can have your own police force and you can provide your own energy and you can take, you can overcome the failures of other levels of government, which is where we want to be one day.
You know, yeah. And I just want to add, I want to tell you what someone said, that they were driving through the Midlands to Pietermaritzburg, and they said there was a remarkable difference because the Midlands, what it doesn't make up in people, it makes up in vast expanse of land. And they said that there was a noticeable difference when the Midlands ended, and so I think that impact is already being seen. Maybe if we move to Cape Town and talk about the water crisis and where you're holding on the water crisis and what kind of things you put in place to prevent it in the future. Maybe just in general, it would be nice to answer, because we're getting quite a few questions, and I think it's a general question about Cape Town. So maybe with the water, and then you can speak about that in general. Is it just in the white areas that this improvement has happened, and you know, how are things in the townships from all the kind of challenges?
Okay, sure. So quickly on the water crisis, when we had the drought a few years ago that Howie referred to, we set in motion four major water projects to deliver new water for Cape Town. The goal is to provide 30% of our daily water needs from new water, as in other words, not relying on our existing dams. So two of those are already complete. That's the Table Mountain and Cape Flats aquifer drilling projects. They are currently delivering water to us every day, and we are growing the capacity of those projects over time to the point where they can deliver 100 megaliters, that's 100 million liters a day of water. Then the second one starts construction next year, and that is a water recycling plant. You know that this is technology that is common all over the world, particularly in Israel and Singapore, but also in London, in Windhoek, right next door to us for decades already. But it's a new concept to South Africa. So that will deliver another 150 megaliters. And then last but not least, and we are deliberately saving this for last because desalination is very power intensive. So it'll be a bit of a problem right now. It's very power intensive. It's very ecologically damaging. And it's very expensive. So we will save desalination for last, but it is absolutely still part of our medium-term plan to desalinate another 150 megaliters a day. And when all of those are done, as I said, we will supply more than 30% of the city's water needs. And they're on track. They're, as I said, the first two are done already, and the next one starting soon. Then just on townships, this is obviously a question I get a lot. So am I happy with living conditions in townships? Of course not. There are far too many people living in severe poverty in Cape Town townships, and far too much unemployment and far too much crime that goes with it. But we are working day and night, and our whole kind of overarching purpose is to try and improve living conditions, get people out of poverty, get people into work in Cape Town townships. Now, I have compared what we do with every other metro. I go and I look at their budgets, I go and look at their programs, and it's not really a matter of debate. It's a simple statement of fact that Cape Town has got more free basic services for the very poor than any other place in South Africa. More refuse collection in townships, more free water, more free electricity than any other place in South Africa. Now, the other thing that I'm very passionate about is cleaning up in our townships. Even though we have refuse collection, some places, some informal townships in Cape Town get refuse collection twice weekly, and 1 or 2 places get refuse collection 3 times a week. Still, if you go into many townships, you will see huge amounts of illegal littering and dumping. So we have started a huge program to add 2,000 extra EPWP workers just in townships to clean up every day, to collect hundreds of thousands of bags of litter, to clean up illegal dumping. We're clamping down with stricter fines. We've bought new vehicles, new bakkies and front-head loaders and so on to go and deal with illegal dumping. And people are starting to notice the difference. Nothing warms my heart more than to get feedback from residents in our townships to say, you know, the place was dirty. It was cleaned up by the city on Saturday afternoon. By Monday afternoon, it was dirty again. And on Tuesday morning, they were back to clean it up again. That kind of feedback, you know, really does warm my heart. We are making a massive effort to clean up in townships.
Geordin, can we ask specifically about the Cape Flats, at crime in the Cape Flats? Because certainly when we look at the crime stats for the Western Cape and Cape Town, the Cape Flats probably appear to be the most dangerous place in the world.
Yeah, so look, again, it goes back to our earlier discussion. You know, the SAPS is clearly not winning the war on crime anywhere in South Africa. Every crime stats for the last year have been going steeply up. So, you know, we are increasingly filling the gap. I just answered one of your questions online. I'm trying to type the answers when I've got a chance to say, you know, we are increasingly trying to stand in that gap. SAPS has still got 10 times the number of officers that we do. We've got about 3,000 officers in Cape Town. SAPS has about 30,000 officers. So they clearly have to play a leading role, but we are trying to fill the gap where we can. And increasingly, it's not financially sustainable for any metro to just add tens of thousands of new officers. If you're not getting the tax revenue that helps pay for SAPS, you can't afford that. But what we are doing is investing in tech, and I'm very excited about this. I mean, the potential of drone technology and aerial surveillance above the city's hotspots 24 hours a day. The cameras that we're rolling out in all of our vehicles that can immediately pick up stolen vehicles as they drive past them on our highways. The gunshot sensors. I mean, just one example of our gunshot sensors. In February, we finished our rollout of 9 communities, the worst communities on the Cape Flats were for gunshots. And one of the things that we found is that gunshots are massively underreported. So actually, there are many more gunshots than are reported to SAPS, because we can now pick up every single one of them and triangulate it to an exact location. And once we have that kind of intel, it makes our officers on the ground much more effective. And what we have seen is a huge spike, for example, in seizing illegal firearms on the Cape Flats, not by SAPS, but by our Metro Police officers, taking hundreds of weapons off of the streets in Cape Town. Now, I want to give SAPS credit where it's due. We actually work extremely closely with them on the ground. It's just that they are hopelessly poorly led at a national level. They are hopelessly under-resourced. We often go on patrols where our officers have got bulletproof vests, they've got protected vehicles, they've got ammunition. They will go with SAPS officers that don't have working vehicles, they've got no bulletproof vests, and they have to buy their own ammunition. I'm dead serious. So this is the kind of situation that is not making for a team that can really win the war on crime. But we work very well with them on the ground. It's more so at a national level that they are really, hesitant to accept the help of a city that's actually trying to stand in the gap.
Have you attempted to devolve some of those powers down to the municipality legally? I mean, I presume you've approached national government and asked for permission or authority to devolve power.
100%. I have a reminder on my phone. I can show it to you. For the first of every month, I get a reminder to write again to Becky Tsele and the Minister of Justice, Ronald Lamola. And I write to them and I set out the case and I get no response. And I know that I'm not going to get any response, and that's not the point. I'm trying to build up a case so that we can fight this properly. And we definitely are going to do that. And it's one that I'm actually quite confident we will win, because it's so obvious and patently clear that SAPS can't win this war on their own. That you have to devolve some of these powers, not all of them, but some of these powers to other municipalities, to other metros who actually can get the job done. And when I just look at the evidence that we are mounting up of hundreds of weapons that we are confiscating at 3 times, 4 times the rate that SAPS is doing it, even though we have 1/10 of the resources, then the argument starts to stack up in our favor very strongly.
So, Geordin, we're going to come back to you in a minute to talk about homelessness, because that's clearly an issue being raised by a lot of the people watching. But before we do that, Chris, tell us, what are the big issues that you're hoping to solve over the next few months or next year within uMngeni?
It's not as exciting as Geordin's. We're not talking about shot recognition cameras and the rest of it. Ours is really to get the basics right. It's ours is to make sure that we can collect the rubbish, that we can keep the streetlights working, that we have the tools to be able to fix the gravel roads and the tar roads. So it's really to build capacity, both the physical capacity to deliver your tools of trade, but the internal capacity, so that's your staff and your systems, to have a government that is able to effectively and efficiently deliver services. So we're a long way behind the city of Cape Town, but if we can get those things right and we lay a strong foundation, then those things are a lot easier to achieve at a later stage. So, it's to have 100% refuse collection in the municipality. It's to make sure that we attend to streetlights within 48 hours. Targets that don't exist at the moment, targets that are if you go to any town in KZN, people would laugh at you to say, no, you can't have that. So that's our goal. In terms of service delivery, the stuff that people see and what we can deliver on, but then to create a vision that people can buy into in this municipality. When I keep reminding our staff and I keep reminding members of the public that it is not my municipality, it's not the Democratic Alliance's municipality, it is a public institution. It's a non-profit company that is owned by everyone. And our goals and our roles should be to try and deliver equitably to as many people as possible within the given resources that we have, in a way that it's fair, in a way that is rational, and in a way that can achieve or add value on multiple different fronts. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a brand new municipality, while at the same time dealing with this huge legacy of something that has failed. That's what we're trying to do.
Talk to us about what happened in July last year when there were riots all over KwaZulu-Natal, mass looting. What happened in uMngeni and what have the effects been?
So we weren't untouched, like many places in KZN. We are one of the larger, we have some of the larger urban areas comparatively in the province, which means that there was value for people to steal, whether it was large supermarkets or I saw someone running down the street with something from Specsavers, a whole thing of glasses. I don't know what they were going to do with them, but anything of value. So we had that. We had factories that were burnt down. We had supermarkets that were razed to the ground, businesses that had to close. But what we also saw was sort of once again that thing that we always speak about as South Africans, and that is resilience. And that when there was an extreme case of us to come, or need for us to come together, people did. When you had taxi owners and the local farmers standing together, when you had Bangladeshi shop owners in the CBD standing together with the security guard who comes from the township, whatever it was, people were standing together to say this is ours and we're going to defend it. But it went more than that. It went, we had a crisis. We didn't have trucks delivering food. When there was sabotage against infrastructure, water wasn't being delivered. So, it became more than just a security threat. It became a humanitarian issue. We had markets that were set up where farmers brought in produce and people could come and get things at either cost price or for free. Egg farmers and milk farmers, people baking bread. There's schools that couldn't, children couldn't eat. So we had this incredible coming together of people to solve that particular issue. But what we also saw was what potentially could happen in South Africa if we don't deal with some of the fundamental problems and the real issues that we have. And majority of those are around poverty and inequality. If we can't make meaningful strides in dealing with that, then what we saw in July can easily happen again by a couple of politicians throwing around recklessly words that incite violence just for some sort of personal gain or some sort of short-term political gain. But it was a scary time. I didn't know that there were so many big guns in people's homes just floating around, and it was scary.
Geordin, let's talk about homelessness, and we're going to interrupt a little later. We're just going to tell everyone because Mark van Jaarsveld from CAP will join us a little later if he can. He's been in a police briefing relating to tomorrow, and he's just going to come and give people some advice about tomorrow as well. So as soon as he's available, he's going to join us and try help alleviate some of the fears and tensions that we're experiencing at the moment. But Geordin, the issue of homelessness in Cape Town is clearly a very big issue. You just have to drive past the castle. Many tourists drive past the castle, and it's a very terrifying thought or sight for them. You walk down the streets of Sea Point, you go under the bridges at the entrance of town, and there's homeless shelters and tents over there. What can be done about homelessness?
Well, thank you. I see this question coming up often in the chat, and happy to answer it, happy to get a chance to answer it. The first thing that everyone needs to note is that in South Africa, no one can be removed from any structure, whether it be formal or informal, unless they go voluntarily, without a eviction order issued by a high court. And in order to even apply for that court order, you have to be able to show the court that you have the wherewithal to accommodate that person elsewhere. You have to provide alternative accommodation at the public cost. So it's a very onerous, a very high bar to be able to move homeless people in Cape Town is not possible until we can provide alternative accommodation. Now, again, in recent years, there was a kind of pass the parcel game going on with the city saying the province has got to deal with this because the province does social development. The city doesn't actually do social grants and social welfare and so on. The province saying, well, it's national that's got to sort it out. National saying, well, these are Cape Town residents, you sort it out. Basically, pass the parcel. And so what we have done over the last year is to start to build and massively expand our alternative accommodation. We had some what we call safe spaces, and they are really fantastic facilities. They offer wonderful, dignified alternative accommodation, sanitation, hot water, showers, training programs, access to mental health assessment, access to drug treatment, and many other things besides, hot meals and so on. And so we've put 220 million rand into expanding these over the last year and carrying on right now. We're building a big one in Ebenezer Road in Greenpoint. That will be our biggest one with over 300 beds. There's one that's about to open in Durbanville, another one in Muizenberg, in Parklands, so all over the place. And what we have done is built up a track record where we can show that we have gone to each and every person living on the street, and we can show that we have interacted with them. We've done an assessment of what they need. We've helped more than 800 people get ID books so that they can just, even if they can get the 350 Rand a month so-called COVID grant, but now it's called SRD, then, even that can help them a little bit. We've gone to offer them drug addiction treatment and so on. Where that's been accepted, then great. Where it has been refused, unfortunately, in the majority of cases, it has been refused. Then we have to go to court. Now, someone was asking, there was something in the news about us doing so about a month ago. That was us getting permission from the court to go and issue the eviction notice to each one of the people for whom we have applied for eviction. That doesn't mean that they are evicted yet. The final date is in April, but it gives them notice of our intention to do so and gives them an opportunity to oppose that if they wish. And just to emphasize again, every one of those people who we have made that application for has an open an open bed at one of our safe spaces. They have a social worker on standby at those safe spaces to help them. And that offer will remain open as long as it needs to, so that they can make use of that alternative accommodation. Unfortunately, and this is the usual immediate follow-up question is, why are they not accepting that help? Our data shows that more than 50% of people living on the streets in Cape Town have an addiction of one form or another. Around 25% of them have an obvious mental health issue. So the huge majority of people living on the streets are not in a mental position to make a clear-headed decision about their own future. They also cite our rules at our safe spaces. We don't allow drug use in our safe spaces. We don't allow any alcohol in our safe spaces. That is for the safety of the other residents, and we can't obviously compromise on that. But in as far as is possible, we try to offer as caring, as supportive an environment as we can to help get people off the streets permanently. And we are now moving to the final stage, which is to ask the court for permission to move them.
Geordin, Hilda is asking, do they have to be out of the shelters in the morning, or can they stay there during the day as well?
No, we ask them to try and get a job and to attend one of our training programs. So in most cases, they are asked to be out of the shelter in the day. We also have to do things like clean up and cook food and so on. But to be honest with you, it is not strictly enforced. So if anyone goes down to our safe space, our biggest one at Culemborg, and this is a public facility, I invite anyone to visit it because it is actually a fantastic, very impressive facility. You will see many people there during the day. And so that is not strictly enforced, but we do encourage people that you do have to actively try to rebuild your life. We offer free training programs. We offer help to go and, take you to Home Affairs, get your ID book for you. And so we do encourage people to make use of all of those things during the day.
While we're waiting for Mark van Jaarsveld to join us, and he'll join us in the next few minutes, Geordin, a lot of questions coming in about smells and sewage, that there's something wrong with the Cape Town sewage system. From those of us in Johannesburg, we say you should be grateful you have any sewage.
I saw someone say that I'm very involved in cleaning up the Milnerton Lagoon. I'm very passionate about that because I live just a few minutes from the Milnerton Lagoon. And I used to grow up there and swim in that lagoon often. It's now closed for swimming. And we have to get it sorted out. We have to get it fixed. But there's no short-term solution to big sewage problems. The heart of the problem is that our massive Potsdam wastewater treatment work is massively over capacity because of the amount of development that has happened in the Tableview Milnerton area. I'm very excited about this, and I really am. I never thought I'd be this excited about sewage, but we're going to start construction there in May, and I can't wait. It is the biggest infrastructure project in the whole of the Western Cape, a 5.5 billion rand upgrade to that wastewater treatment works. And it is very exciting to see. So that is starting, the big machines should be there in May. And when it's complete, it will make a kind of life-changing difference to the health of that waterway. Now, I know that some people are asking about the coastal outfalls. The long and short of it is that these are very commonly used around the country and around the world. We know that they are not ideal for the future, although they are operating perfectly to design specifications. That they are not a problem to be concerned about in the short term. We understand that the Atlantic seaboard, the Camps Bay and Sea Point, where those outfalls are very desirable places to live, and so they need to be dealt with in the medium term, and we will do that. But the immediate priority has to be that Milnerton, Parklands, Tableview area, where we are about to start that massive 5.5 billion rand upgrade. And thereafter, we will look at how we can treat those coastal outfalls better. But part of the problem is space. I promise you, and I know that it's many of you, I'm sure that it's many of your listeners, Howard. I received that picture of the sewage plant that was built in New York City on the East River at least twice a week. I received that picture saying, why aren't we doing this in Cape Town? And the space is a real problem in Sea Point. Where do you put a sewage plant in Sea Point? And you cannot build it in the ocean, because the difference between the East River of New York City and the Atlantic Ocean is quite a massive difference. It wouldn't last 5 minutes in the Atlantic Ocean. It will last in the East River. So we cannot build a floating sewage works on the Atlantic seaboard. We have to try and find a place to do it underground, which is a massive engineering challenge. but it is absolutely on our medium-term agenda.
Thanks, Geordin. And we're joined by Mark van Jaarsveld. Mark, you look like you haven't slept in days, and my guess is you're not going to sleep in the next few days either. Thank you for joining us this evening, and to both Geordin and Chris, thank you for allowing Mark to come spend a few moments with us. But Mark, obviously, a lot of people are very anxious about tomorrow. And maybe it's just political intimidation, but you've been with the police, you've been briefed on their expectations of the next few days. And Benjy just suggested that it would be probably appropriate that you came on and just gave us all some advice of what we should be doing over the next 24 hours, 30 hours or so.
Thanks, Owen. I appreciate the opportunity to be such, to be among such esteemed individuals. All of whom are doing such incredible work, and please God, we should only have such discussions in Johannesburg, about the future of our city. So everyone, I think, look, from a CAP point of view, our message is really simple. I think tomorrow there are no real excuses. Everyone's had the forewarning and the time to prepare adequately for whatever scenario unfolds. I can speak for CAP confidently. We prepared. We're working very closely with the law enforcement agencies, communities, various security role players. There's wonderful communication amongst, the various bodies, and we prepared for whatever outcome. Obviously our hope is that, whoever chooses to protests peacefully. That is their constitutional right, and we would support that, and we would encourage no one to provoke or intimidate or escalate, or pass their views. Let people protest. That's their right. And so to the protesters should allow people to exercise their constitutional rights, whatever that may or may not be. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity for business and employees generally to just come closer to one another. So contrary to some of the mainstream advice, we aren't expecting, anarchy in the suburbs. We aren't expecting significant challenges, within the areas that we cover. Of course, there will be, and there's likely to be, flashpoints that will take place in and around, specifically Alexander, the CBD, perhaps along Louis Botha, like we've seen historically. But we're well placed and prepared for that, and we're not anticipating too many challenges. I think, again, unless businesses have been specifically threatened and intimidated, they should open. The employees who choose to come to work should work and be paid. I think there are many people who need the money more than anything else. And where there have been instances of specific threats and intimidation, then, obviously we would encourage them to reach out to us, and let's look at how do we create a safe space responsibly for people to continue trade if that's what they choose to do. But yeah, it's going to be a long night, and perhaps a hard day tomorrow. But I think in general, there's a lot of fear and noise, and we need to just be rational, clear-headed, and look at the facts of it as it unveils tomorrow.
Vijay, you've been specific on just being careful on fake news and things like that. Maybe you can help people with that. And the second thing is just maybe you can share with Danny some contact numbers for people in the CAP areas that they could contact, and any of the contact points.
Sure. So, I think, everyone that spreads news that is doing it because they care. But I think our message is really simple. If you don't see it yourself, you haven't witnessed it yourself, then rather refrain from forwarding anything that hasn't yet been verified by an independent news source or by us or some other security department. It creates a lot of noise. It takes away resources to verify and validate those reports, and ultimately, if the worst case scenarios unfold, then obviously all the resources that are at our disposal and the state's disposal needs to be channeled in the most appropriate places. So unless you see something, please don't report it. Don't just forward on messages from your best friend or your mother or whoever. Verify it yourself, and if you're unsure, then we'll share some contact information that can be put into the chat. But we've integrated a live map into our website. So if you go to the capcommunity.coza website, there will be a live map with running updates of what has been reported and cleared, what is currently live, in other words, live protests that are peaceful. Obviously, if they're peaceful, there's no issue to worry about it. There'll be information on anything that potentially may be violent, roads that are blocked. And our plan is quite comprehensive in that we've made provision to, once the police have stabilized an area, and if they need our support, then obviously we'll provide it, to clean up any debris and to open as many roads as possible and as quickly as possible, whether it's using tow trucks, if people have parked cars, or removing rubble, or whatever the case may be. We prepared for that, those scenarios. And yeah, look at our website, follow us on Twitter, and obviously, as I said, many different CPF forums and those types of groups. Get onto them and watch what happens today. It's dynamic. It will change. Hopefully, nothing too serious. But if you do pick up something serious in your area, then our advice would be obviously to close your business and go home. It's safer to do that. But if there's nothing, and the nearest activity is 5 kilometers away from you, then don't kind of worry if it's being contained.
So Sandra's actually saying her kids are at university. Should they go to university tomorrow?
Yeah, look, it's again very, very hard to comment now. But our message in general is that wake up tomorrow morning, look at what's happening. Don't be let's not sensationalize information. Assess it, and if you can see there's nothing happening, and the roads are open, and the news is reporting that it's safe, and we're saying it's safe, then go to university and get an education, and let's take our country forward. At the same time, I think there is a lot of fear mongering and there's a lot of intimidation, and it's easy to send letters and it's easy to say things, but that has to materialize. And I think that's our message: is we got to try carry on our life as much as possible and exercise our rights as much as possible sensibly, and with a degree of caution. And that means just being sensible about it all. We can all freak each other out by just sitting behind the computer and typing 100 different messages and forwarding on everything. And I think that's just not conducive to certainly the type of climate and environment we want to ensure that our residents have. So it's all about being sensible, assessing the situation tomorrow. If you choose to stay at home and you want to go out to the shopping centers, jump on the web pages, look at the groups, see what's happening. And if you want to go to shops, go to the shops. I think it's an important time to support local business. But as I said, we need to be sensible, we need to be cautious, and don't expect people to drive into, anything that is potentially dangerous. But I think we saw this in the riots, of July 2021. There was a lot of misinformation. There was nothing wrong for you leaving your house in Mijan Street to go to Genesis. There was nothing happening. Yet people felt if they had gone onto the streets, they were going to be, hurt and caught in crossfire. And I think that's the danger of social media. It's extremely powerful, but at the same time, let's try to be a little bit more rational tomorrow, cool, calm, and collected, and assess what is there. And if it's unsafe to do so, then don't go. And if it is, then go. And if you see that you're going to drive into something, stop. Get as much information, report it, and remove yourself from that environment.
Geordin, I don't know if you saw it, but Bev, in fact, posted a list of potential danger spots for tomorrow in Cape Town. Is that legitimate, or should people just ignore it and follow the sort of advice that VJ has been given?
I'm with Mr. Van Jaarsveld on this. I don't think that these places will be too dangerous to use tomorrow. I think that we are very ready. We have a very large deployment. We are working very closely with SAPS. And I really expect it to be a damp squib in Cape Town tomorrow. I suspect there will probably be isolated incidents where someone is hot-headed or hot-tempered and tries to do something. But overall, I really do encourage people to treat it as business as usual, and just keep out for the alerts that we will put out publicly throughout the day. And if those warrant a change in assessment, then you'll know about it. Otherwise, carry on.
But Hilda's just said, but she believes the waterfront is going to be a main target. You saying go to Key 4, have a beer on the waterfront, maybe take a little cruise off the coast over there. No reason to avoid the waterfront or anywhere else at this point in time.
I will be in a chopper from 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, checking out the city and making sure that all is well. So Hilda, I will land at Key 4 and meet you there for breakfast.
Can you put us on the way?
VJ, thank you. I just want to thank you for the enormous time and effort that you and your team have put in, and just please God tomorrow works out exactly like you're saying. People just are able to see if they're hotspots, not to enter them, like you wouldn't enter any hotspots.
So VJ, won't you please just give us the CAP number? If people see something and want to report it, what number should they use? And we'll post that on the chat now as well.
Sure. So obviously the main number will be our control room number, which is 0861 227 227. And then for those that are a little bit more technologically inclined with the use of WhatsApp, it will be 066 306 8349. And then I think the most important thing actually for live updates will be to log on to our website, capcommunity.co.za. Click the link for live updates with regards to the 20th of March. And there will be a key that indicates what's live, and obviously try avoid, any of the violent protests if there are anything reported, and if there is any roads blocked. Alternatively, you can also just follow us on Twitter. We will be putting out 30-minute updates, as well as obviously if there's anything that's material that needs to be reported, that will go out live.
VJ, thank you to you and your entire team from all of us watching. So appreciate it.
Thank you, guys, and take care. Have a good night.
Thanks. So, gentlemen, sorry for that interruption, but Benjy, you wanted to talk to our two mayors about lessons.
No, so I think that the recent job numbers came out with 166,000 jobs created in Cape Town out of 168,000 jobs created overall. I think it was something like that.
Correct.
And if you had to paint a picture to both of our brilliant mayors here, which is such a privilege to be with you, 3 or 4 lessons that you would give to any other mayor, what would they be? And if you could have some type of hierarchy, what would be step 1 for you? And give us 3 or 4 lessons.
Who wants to start?
Let's start with Chris.
I think
Chris, you start.
That one. So I think the first thing is to get the buy-in from the people that you represent. You're not a leader unless you have followers, and you need your entire municipality to be moving in the same direction. So you need to put all the mechanisms in place, get the people on board, and move in the same direction. Let people understand what the vision is, let people understand what the challenges are, and what your plan is to overcome them. So clear communication, a vision, and taking people with you. I think then is partnerships. Government can't do it alone. And there's been for a long time in KZN, I'm not sure so much about the Western Cape, but in KZN, the private sector and civic associations or civic sector has been an enemy or an opposition to government, which is not right. Government and the private and civic sector should be partners. So to create those partnerships, to build the bridges, to realize that as a municipality, we are not excellent and efficient at dealing with HIV/AIDS awareness, and finding those people who are, partnering with them and empowering them to do that. And the same for everything, to be that partner and to create those partnerships that can help achieve that common vision.
Well, there goes the internet in uMngeni, I think.
Okay, let me pick that up then. Maybe Chris, we can get Chris back. I think it's a great question. Just very briefly, I think look after the rands and cents first. You cannot fix anything in service delivery until you have got a proper budget, until debt is low, until you have a proper payment culture, and you've started to stop corruption. So look after the rands and cents. Everything, all service delivery flows from that. Focus on infrastructure over the nice to haves and over the kind of other temptations for government spending. There are always, the needs in South Africa are infinite. And so it's always tempting to divert precious resources to some of those other priorities. But if you mess with infrastructure, eventually you get to a point that we now see very sadly in places like Johannesburg and Tshwane where the infrastructure, and eThekwini, where the infrastructure is at the point of collapse. So always focus on your repairs and maintenance and your infrastructure investment. Then I really underscore what Chris has said about having an absolutely clear vision. You need to be ambitious, even if things are very tough, as they are all over South Africa now. You cannot build a sense of pride in your city. You can't build a sense of common purpose in your city if you are kind of navel gazing. You have to have a clear vision. And finally, I would probably say, don't think that any of the serious problems you face in your municipality are going to be solved by anyone else. That has proven to be false in South Africa. So if you have a crippling problem that is fundamentally affecting the future of your municipality and the people in it, start figuring out how you are going to do it yourself. It might not all happen at once. It might be a very long, slow process, like we are busy engaged in with trains, for example. To take over the management of trains in Cape Town will not happen overnight. But unless we start planning for it now and building skills now, it will never happen. And the trains will never work properly.
Chris, we lost you, unfortunately, in the middle. Do you want to continue where we lost you?
Well, I think Jordan's covered a lot of it. I mean, it's basic good management, and those are the things that you should do. Perhaps maybe the one thing that I'd add is the power of creating access to opportunities. Many people want to lift themselves out of poverty. Many people want to be able to help in some sort of way. I've seen some of the chats, people asking, how can we help? How can we get involved? And I think one of our primary things that we need to do as municipalities is create those access to opportunities to get involved, opportunities for people to self-improve, whether it's libraries or Wi-Fi or whatever it might be. So to realize the importance of creating that access to opportunity, because then it doesn't matter whether or not you grow up in Khayelitsha or Sea Point, the opportunities that you have to be able to succeed in life are there. The schooling is good, the healthcare is good, information is not a problem, and you have that ability. And government, local government is really at the center of that, is to create those opportunities. So to never lose sight of that vision of that being your primary role, is to empower people to have access to opportunities.
So, gentlemen, we have about 10 minutes before we end, and I want to tell you what the last question is, which is what I'll ask you in 10 minutes' time, but I want to give you notice of that. And that is going to be one leadership lesson that you will each tell us, and that's where we will end the webinar in about 10 minutes' time. But I tell you that now because I'm sure you want to think about that. But I think there's some very important questions, if you don't mind, to have two DA mayors on the panel and not talk about what's happening within the DA itself, and not talking about what may happen after the next general election, which is 14 months away, seems to be a wasted opportunity. So maybe I can go first just with internal DA politics, and then Benjy's going to talk about rainbow coalitions and whether they're possible or not. But you have party elections coming up on the 4th of April. John Steenhuisen, the leader of your party, is being challenged by the former mayor of Johannesburg. If she doesn't win, the chances are ultimately she will leave the party and another senior black leader will be lost to the party. If she does win, well, the party finally gets a black face and maybe becomes more palatable to black voters. Tell us how you see the next few weeks in the DA's history panning out.
Well, she's got a very tall order.
I think I started last time, Jordan, so you can start this time.
Mpopelat's got a very tall order to win. She's obviously running a great campaign and is trying to be competitive, but it will be extremely tough to win. But I want to challenge your premise, Howard, that people who lose leadership election races will inevitably leave the party. I hope that that's not the case. I mean, people who put their hands up in politics and run for things lose all the time. I've been very, very blessed in my political career that I was elected for parliament the first time I ran, and I was elected to the mayoralty, but many others have been taken many knocks and stood up and carry on working for what you believe in and carry on fighting. So I don't think that she will do that, and I sincerely hope that that's not the case. That would be deeply disappointing. I think that she still has a very exciting future in the DA and a hell of a lot to contribute. I see how mayors of very important cities around the world often run for presidential positions. I see how the mayor of Istanbul, I think it is now, or has already run for president. He's now the deputy president, and this is quite common. She was obviously the mayor of Africa's most important city. I say that through clenched teeth as the mayor of Cape Town, but I have to accept that Joburg is still an extremely important city. And so she has an extremely bright future in politics. And I just only wish that she had much longer to be mayor because she was starting to slowly make headway there. But I don't think that this particular election on the 2nd of April will be her victorious moment, but it may well come in future.
Chris, when you answer this question from your perspective, will you add in, is it fair comment that maybe the DA doesn't look diverse enough in its senior leadership in order to attract Black voters in?
No, I think that's an unfair statement. I think that, first of all, what are you comparing us to? Because if you look at every other political party in South Africa, none of them look nearly remotely as diverse as we are. The second thing is that it's not engineered. The majority of DA members are non-white members. And these are the members who vote for their leaders. And they don't look at the skin color of their leaders. They look at the capability of their leaders. So it's not a manufactured show that we put on. It is the byproduct of internal elections where, Black, white, colored, and Indian members of the party come together and say, well, whether it's a white man or a Black woman, we're looking at capability. And then I go back to my first point to say, well, what are you comparing us to? You're looking at organizations that have non-elected leaders. You're having organizations that are completely monochrome or mono-religious, or whatever it might be. So what we're doing is not easy. What we're doing is bringing South Africans together across various different divides and trying to build something that is common to us all. And that'll never be easy, but I think the statement is unfair to say that, it's not palatable to South Africans. The first point of this discussion this evening was how race actually has very little impact on people's lives, and it's rather about ability to deliver. So, yeah.
Benjy?
I heard at the conference, and I think Chris will remember, that they said if there was a handful of people like Chris, and I'm sure they would have said the exact same thing about Geordin, that South Africa would be a far better country, and it's an absolute privilege to be with you. But the question comes from this. I don't know if you heard Grayton McKenzie's interview recently, and who's been a kingmaker in some of the Rainbow Coalition, so-called Rainbow Coalition environments. And if you heard Herman Mashaba, and both of them claim that the Rainbow Coalition is under enormous threat because of Helen Zille. And I think we mentioned Frans Cronje earlier. I think we all love the data coming out of the Social Research Foundation. It looks so promising in terms of how low the ANC is going to be. However, there is going to have to be coalition politics. And do we have like some, and whether the Patriotic Alliance is right or whether Herman Mashaba is right or not, they are players in the game. We can't pretend they're not players in the game. I'd be interested to hear your views on the Rainbow Coalition. It obviously has not worked in Gauteng. And I'd be interested in your view on the broader kind of framework where recently the DA has said that maybe they would have a coalition with ANC. I did hear Helen Zille say that is the worst case scenario is a coalition between the ANC and Julius Malema, and that would be worst case scenario. And second worst for them would be to have to do a coalition with the ANC. I'd be interested in your view on the Rainbow Coalition, on Helen Zille, on her role, because both feel that she is a stumbling block to the Rainbow Coalition, and then that the ANC-DA coalition, what you think, whether there's a chance of that. Maybe, Geordin, you'll start.
So I said in an interview a couple of weeks ago with the Mail and Guardian what I thought of an ANC coalition, and it turned out to be very controversial. I still think it's fairly logical and obvious point, so I'll just repeat it here. I think that every one of us in politics in South Africa who are, peace-loving and democratic-loving people have a moral and political responsibility to do everything possible to prevent the EFF getting anywhere near government, because they will destroy South Africa. And here we are talking at great length about their threat of plunging South Africa into chaos tomorrow morning. And there are still people out there who think that it is feasible or acceptable that we should allow them to get anywhere near the union buildings. I would consider almost any coalition that would prevent that from happening. And so I just want to reiterate that point. This is not really about the ANC to me. It's about stopping these awful people from getting into positions of serious national power. So that is almost my number one objective for next year's election. And then, the best case scenario is, of course, that we have a rainbow coalition. So the rainbow coalitions will be extremely difficult. The kind of personalities, massive egos, very small parties, like this chap that is now the mayor of Joburg, who wants, by the way, his chief policy priority is to introduce Sharia law in Johannesburg. So these are the kind of people that you may have to work with in a rainbow coalition. I can tell you it is, you need the wisdom of Solomon, you need the wisdom of 500 Solomons to make that kind of coalition work, but it is still better than all the other alternatives. So we have to try and make that work. I absolutely am in favor of trying to make a rainbow coalition work. The DA has proposed some legislative amendments that would make it slightly harder for those one-man band parties to be in a coalition. And I think that's a very sensible thing to provide for, or to propose. And that would make it, I think, a bit easier to have a stable coalition, but still extremely difficult. Then I'm afraid, Benjy, I will not allow anyone to speak ill of Helen Zille in my presence. She's a mentor to me. She is I think a once in a lifetime politician. South Africa will one day realize the unbelievable value that she has added to the society. And so, I think probably the reason she is despised by people in opposing political parties is because she is a far better, far more wily negotiator than they could hope to be, and she probably has the better of them every time they meet. That's certainly the Helen that I know. So I think she'll still play a very important role for a while to come, and I'm very grateful to have her there. The point is that so many of these parties are not interested in principle. They're not interested in rebuilding South Africa. They're not interested in the difficult policy choices of how to fix energy or fix the trains or what to do about government procurement or all of those things. Those are all kind of by the by for them. It's all about what can we get out of these negotiations for ourselves personally. And that makes it extremely difficult to have any good faith relationship. Because it's, you basically just always they're always trading you off against one another to see what they can get out of the next best deal. So that makes it very, very tough.
Chris, before you answer, can I just probe Geordin on one thing? Is there a rainbow coalition with the EFF and the DA in the same coalition a possibility after next year's election?
Speaking personally, I'm not speaking with any party mandate now, but that would be unacceptable to me. Sorry, I thought you meant by Rainbow Coalition, I thought you meant everyone excluding the ANC
Yes.
and the EFF.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was saying. Like it's what they try to do in Joburg. Well, I mean, the Patriotic Alliance, Action SA, that kind of thing, excluding the EFF.
But in your view, in your world, Geordin, having the EFF and the DA in a coalition together, a rainbow coalition, is an impossibility.
Howard, this is a party that wants to plunge South Africa into chaos, not next year when they win, tomorrow. They only are in the business of breaking things and destroying things. They are not in the business of building anything. And we must do all that we can. We have, I really believe this, we have a moral duty to make sure they never get anywhere near government.
Chris, your perspective?
I share much of what Geordin has said. The future of South Africa is going to be on coalitions. We have lessons to learn in the process. We are very young as a country and as a democracy. Some of those lessons will be painful if we don't choose to learn from other countries who've done this for many years. So we can circumvent all the pain if we choose to be wiser than those countries. But I do fear that there are far too many people in politics, some of which you have mentioned, your Gates and McKenzies and others, who are not in it for the general best interest of South Africa, who are there for access to power and the resources that comes with. And that's been shown over and over again when coalitions are collapsed for positions where there's a disproportionate allocation of democratic power to a person with one seat in a council of 400. Yet the citizens of a 6 million person city are then subject to that. So I think there's some serious lessons that we have to learn around power and positions. The other thing is then on Helen. I know Helen from my interactions, party-wise and as a mayor, provides incredible guidance. Geordin's had obviously a lot closer personal relationship. But the one thing that I do know is that politics firstly is not about short-term gains. It's about foreseeing the future and trying to make calculated decisions based on what the political environment is now, what will happen in future. And Helen is incredibly skilled at doing that, to a point where, as Geordin said, people who, like Herman Mashaba, will go out in public and say Helen Zille is the best, one of the best women, one of the best political leaders, and then 6 months later try to jump on the bandwagon to blame her for his leaving the organization. So yeah, there's also an unfairness in the conversations that we have. But uMngeni Baloyi, who was a DA mayor, left Action SA last week. No media headline saying senior black leader leaves Action SA. And it wasn't point. Herman Mashaba's fault, because Herman Mashaba is destroying it internally and he must leave to make Action SA work. You don't see that. So the narrative will continue about Helen Zille, and the narrative will continue about the DA being a white party and the rest of it. But election after election and decision after decision that we make on behalf of South Africans proves all of those wrong. So if we stick to the long game and we stick to our values and principles and what we know is right for the country, then I think that we're on the right track with leaders like Helen and others.
So to Geordin and to Chris, I posed the question that we're going to close this webinar with a lesson in leadership. It can be a lesson in political leadership, it can be a lesson in personal leadership, but clearly we've got two of the best leaders that have come out of South Africa. And while you may share a party, you also share a generation. You are the future leaders of the country. And hopefully there will be many more who will come through I didn't ask everyone's age, but you all look like you're in your 30s. Geordin, am I complimenting you excessively?
I'm 35, 36.
36, and Chris, 31.
That's correct.
So it's a new generation in leadership. So I'd love you both to impart to everyone watching this evening, and I'd love everyone who's watched as well just to leave us a comment while you're doing this of the lessons that people who are watching this have learned tonight. But if each of you could just give us one lesson in personal leadership. Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure. So there was actually three that I wrote down, but the one that stands out the most for me that I would want to leave people with is that compromise is not weakness. Compromise, calculated compromise that is, based on values and based on principles can lead to something better. So as South Africans and as leaders, we must not see compromise, whether it's a DA, ANC coalition one day in future, compromise as a weakness, but rather see it as something that is a step towards something much, much better, if that is where it leads.
Geordin?
Tough question. I've got lots of thoughts swirling around in my mind, but I think I'll settle on one, and that is to pursue meaning. Often you're told growing up that you've got to have a kind of 10-year career trajectory. You've got to write down your career goals and plan it all out carefully in your mind or even on paper. That has never ever been my approach. I've tried to do what gives me a sense of personal meaning and gives me a sense that I'm doing something useful with my time, that I'm contributing positively to society. And with that has always come a huge amount of joy and enjoyment and fulfillment, and has really made this one of the funnest careers that I could possibly have imagined, and one of the careers that really does give me a sense of purpose every day when I wake up. So I feel hugely fulfilled by that, and I think that it's a lesson in a world in which kids are put under pressure to plan their whole lives by the time they matriculate. I don't think you should do that. I think you should pursue what gives you a sense of meaning, and the next opportunity will come your way soon enough.
I want you, before you close, to give you both the opportunity to give us reason to come visit either uMngeni or Cape Town, two remarkable parts of the world. And you've had tonight, between Zoom and Facebook and YouTube, thousands and thousands of people watching our conversation. But Chris, let's start with you. Tell us what is in uMngeni that will excite us and encourage us to come visit and be tourists in your municipality.
So I'm going to give you our 30-second tourism pitch, because that was Tourism Month a couple of weeks ago. So there's no need to visit Durban. Durban's got Gateway shopping mall and beaches that you can hardly swim in. Stay in uMngeni. We've got good wine, good gin, good beer. We've got good hotels, good hiking. We've got beautiful people. Cuisine is unbelievable. We're 4 hours drive from Joburg. We've got some of the most beautiful golf courses. We're right next to the Drakensberg. The only waterfall in the CBD in South Africa is right here. Beautiful landscapes. And best of all is that if you do want to go to the beach, it's only an hour's drive away from here. So come to uMngeni, come spend your money, and you won't regret it.
Fantastic. Geordin, why should we spend some time in Cape Town?
Well, I can't resist the temptation. You must please visit uMngeni. It's a beautiful place. I've been there before, but you should not go for the wine, because they do not have good wine in uMngeni. I refuse to believe it. And I challenge Chris Pappas to prove it by sending me the best bottle of wine that beats Klein Constantia or Beau Constantia or any one of Cape Town's magnificent wine farms. So please come to Cape Town for amazing wine. Come to Cape Town for amazing natural beauty and outdoor adventure. But most importantly, come here because while we still have a huge amount of work to do and we are very, very far from perfect, here is a place that, in the midst of incredible reason to be concerned in South Africa, here is a place that is pumping, that is thriving, that is moving forward step by step in the right direction and making a better quality of life for everyone. And that's a great reason to come to Cape Town.
A massive thank you to Philip Krawitz, who for the last few months has been saying, you must get Geordin on a webinar, and to Benjy Porter, who said, you can't do a webinar with Geordin without Chris Pappas. These are the two best leaders that we have in South Africa. So to our two mayors, a huge thank you for joining us this evening. Benjy, thank you for co-hosting with me. We will leave the chat on for the next few minutes, and I will copy the chat and give copies to both Chris and Geordin, because some of the compliments coming in are just absolutely astounding. I think it's amazing to find politicians that actually have the love and support of their constituents. And that's, I think, truly unique in South Africa. So before I give it to Benjy to close for this evening, a reminder, we'll be back next week, Sunday, where we'll have some rabbis climbing mountains and giving, more importantly, lessons that they learn from the mountains themselves. Benjy?
So Howie, it's wonderful to have both of these gentlemen. And I think what I find the most inspiring is obviously their great insight, their great intellect, what they're doing, their purpose-led leadership is amazing. But actually what I find so inspiring is that you've committed to our country with all its shadows and with all its wonderful parts and with all its deep challenges, but at the same time, it's wonderful people. And to see two people like you that are so committed to our country just gives me such optimism and hope. And I think that part of life is just being around great people. And I think to know that you two have committed to our country to the extent that you have, we can't thank you enough. And I know just by doing your job and the way you do it is enormously inspiring. And you can just see by the comments coming through. So thank you so much, and may God bless you, and may you just go from strength to strength, you and your families.
I want to leave with a thought. Someone said to me today, you know what would have made the EFF really enormously successful tomorrow? Instead of protesting, if they took shovels and spades and filled up every pothole in each of the cities, that would have shown a commitment to building South Africa the way you guys have. And that would have gained them much more support than burning a few tires and making a little noise will make them tomorrow. With that thought, we'll see you again next week. Thank you so much, everyone. Good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.